Let me ask you a preliminary question. How many here have never been on Virtuous? Okay, never been on Virtuous. Okay, that's okay. And anytime you do computer classes or classes about the internet, you're always dealing with multiple levels of understanding and use. So I'm going to try to go through some basic steps. So some of them will be preliminary enough that it'll help people understand how to get on, but I also want to concentrate on some of the more detailed things you should learn to do if you've been on it for a while. So we've only got, about a little less than an hour. I will tell you at the outset that there are several of us now trained in the office. We can log in. We have literally logged in and done classes in remote Africa where the internet's not good, live. And we like that because we can log it onto your machine directly in most cases. So I have no problem connecting with any of you doing that. We also have some videos available, and I'll even show you where some videos are if you have questions. So the subject of this class is called Virtuous, your missionary dashboard. Virtuous has nothing to do with my lesson. I'm talking about sin. It's not about my moral standing or anything. It just happens to be a corporate name that they picked, so I won't take any ownership of that. It wasn't something we selected. I also want to point out another important thing is Virtuous is not the missions accounting system, all right? So we still have an accounting system. Kim knows that. This is an informational portal for you to be able to see account information and transactions. Anytime you see something that you have a problem with, just like if you've got a paper report, you can call head office. Campbell doesn't want me to tell you this, but you can call to accounting and check. The other thing to understand about Virtuous, which is one of the main factors, why Virtuous? Why did you do this to us? Why did you go online? Why? Just because it's new? No. It's because in reality, we recognize as a mission agency one thing. We weren't getting you information about your donors and your balances quick enough, okay? And to do that in a way to give you information, this is really what these systems are called, this type of, is customer or consumer relationship management. Building relationships, you're going to hear that when you talk to Keith about building relationships, and this is simply a tool to know when your donors give to you as quickly as we know it. And the old system, conservatively, because Ken's here, it might be 60 days when you see your balances information. And if you didn't pick up your report, so somebody's giving you a major gift, a love gift, and you don't know it unless you look at the report. Today, we'll show you that you know it is almost as quick as we do. What happens, the balances you see are looking almost like a live checking account balance, okay? That means if Patty processes a gift, it goes in the system, the server updates the information basically at midnight, so the next morning you've got the information and your accounts are updated. Expenses are the same way, just like in your account. You could have a check come in, but the expenses might not be out there yet. So don't go, oh gosh, I've got this big balance, because you haven't cleared your cleared checks yet. And so that's what accounting does. But that same thing is happening in the evening. That happened that evening. But did that bill get paid that day, or did it got mailed in? So just understand it's a live tracking. I don't like it. It's not an accounting system. It's not supposed to be the finest. But Kim is always, and accounting is monitoring it so that makes sure that's tested. So again, it is a relatively new system. The other thing is we had another accounting system before this that provided that paper report. And Kim, how long did we have that system in place?
I think the original one was 1995.
Okay.
And then it was changed and then updated in 2006.
Right. So the last system was 2006, right? That was updated. That means all the information that was in our database was moved over to Virtuous. And in reality, one of the things I'm going to talk about today is, for example, managing pledges, which is very important to managing budgets and expenses that have been talked about. The old system didn't do that. It kept receipts and things, but it didn't really manage donation and pledging to you in a way. So all the information came over into the new system. And quite honestly, the new system didn't know how to deal with some of those transactions and didn't have information. Why? You know your donor. Your donor lost a job. They're going to adjust their payment or they're going to stop. We don't know that. When Bob or Patty sees a check come in, or they can look at it and they can make assumptions. Okay, they checked the button for it to be multiple. But here's the first check that showed up. I don't know whether that's the beginning of a pledge. We're going to come back to that. So there's a lot of information. It's not meant to be every answer. You're going to have to participate. So the dashboard is your portal for information. Now, for those that you have not participated, this is a login page that you'll see if you go to the shortcut. If you don't even have the shortcut and how to get there, Tammy's here, my wife. She's got my business card. We'll communicate with that. I'll log on and set it up for you and help you through this. But when you get to the screen, you're going to say you can log in with Google, Microsoft. These are talking about ways to get in, or you can put your email in and password. Now, I'm going to tell you the best way to do it is do this way. It's less complicated, and the reality is, just like everything else on the internet, there are many browsers out there, there are many interconnections, so as clean as you can get it, the better, particularly when you're working overseas. But this is up on the web. This is not sitting on a server in global. So you place your email in and a password. Now the beginning process, some of you have gone through and you go, well, I did that, but then I had to wait for a couple of days. It's because we have to know that you're verified in the system, and it takes us anywhere from 24 hours to 48 hours for us to connect with that and line your account up. So if you haven't done that, there'll be a process where you send that and you basically send us a note and confirming it. Sometimes I see it and we can adjust it, but it's better that you send me an email and say, Dennis, I've logged in. Here's even the password. It's secure enough you give me a password, because quite honestly, 2 minutes later when you get it, you can change the password to whatever you want. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to log in. If you're on your personal computer, you can say, remember me, so you don't have to keep doing that. But again, if you don't have a habit of writing passwords down, write your password down. But if for those of you that don't follow that rule, if you forget your password, you will get an email addressed to there, and it will basically allow you to reset your password. Okay? Now, if you're expecting me to sign on class and you've sent me another password, we're going to have to talk about that. But you never should be locked out of the system. All right? Now, when you get in, I've cut the screen down and I'm working off, not online, because internet's not been reliable. When this normally comes up, you have a big dashboard screen. And down the one side, there's always this little V here. If you open it up, it'll let you read the words. Normally, you just see the icons. Okay? Now, obviously, you'd think the top is the dashboard. Well, there's other reports. I'll come back. What you're going to want to do if you're new, and I've printed out some sheets for you, the thing I tell most missionaries is log in and go to the word projects. In the new system, your accounts equal projects. So, in this case, if I click on projects, I will immediately pull up a list. You will have what we call a parent account, which is your name only. There are no funds or activity, that's just your registered number. That tells me that your primary number, in this case, is 704. That's your account. Those numbers haven't changed. If you know your account, you'll look for that number. Most missionaries after that will have 3 accounts: their ministry account, their personal account, and their venture account. Okay? I'm not going to go through all those descriptions. You can, if you're not sure of those at this point in your life, I'm sorry for you. But the one you're probably going to care about is your ministry account. That's the main account that you're operating out of. I'm being a little flippant here. Personal account of those gifts that come in without any deduction for them for personal. And venture, because we didn't want too many words, project, that's your project account. That's where if you're buying a vehicle or something like that. Now, some of you could have other accounts. Now, this example that I've set up they also support a children's program within their ministry, and they have a dedicated account. So that's what you're going to see under your projects. Those are your accounts, and all those accounts you have access to. So I open up my ministry account, and this is for Bill. Bill? All right. You open up your ministry account. First of all, you can look over here and on the right-hand side, at the bottom, there's a balance right here. All right, so that's your current balance. You don't have to go any further if you're concerned just about the living balance. It's going to be on that first page of your ministry statement. The second place that's important is a statement. I'm not going to leave this yet, but let me tell you something. I'm going to get a little computer-y. Some of you will want to follow this. Because this is on a website, at the top of whatever browser, that's the device that, the browser page where you log on and search, there's an address across the top of the page. It's called a URL. And there'll be an address. That address will be unique to this page. So if you wanted to, at this point, you could stop, if this is where it gets into teaching computer or not, if you know how to save favorites on your computer, and you save favorites, normally in the top screen on whatever browser you're using, there's a place of drop-down settings, and you can select Save to Desktop. There's some variation depending on your machines. I'm willing to help you set this up. But that means I could have a desktop icon, right? The icon would then click on, depending on your security settings, it might stop you and ask you for your password, but if not, it'll take you to this page. So you basically can look at your balance right there and go no further. All right, you with me? Now, why I've got this page up for, I'm going to use it and talk about it a little bit so you understand this page. Again, I'm looking at the project. Here gives me my account code, 010. Everybody that's got a ministry account has got an 010. That's your ministry account. It tells you what the beginning balance was, which is not important because that's at the time the account was set up, and a current balance. The current balance, current. Now, amount needed. Now, these numbers are made up for somebody. Nobody has a budget this low. But what it's showing you is that they have a monthly need of $225. They have pledges of $175, so they're 78% towards their goal. They've raised that much money this year. Relating this to other conference speakers, they've talked about their budget. Number one, if you currently look at your page and you do not have a monthly amount needed, is where you need to talk to Jesse. You need to make sure you have that number added. So you have your budget number. The pledges is where we're going to spend time today, because as you add the pledges in there, this number will change. The monthly pledge will change, and it'll tell you how close you are to reaching your budget. So it's a quick and instant way to always know how close you are to your activity. The other information in the sample is it will give you number 4 is they have 4 givers this year. They've had a total of 37 givers. This is a person who's been on short term with us. And they had currently amount of expenses and total amount of expenses and for this year. So those numbers will change, obviously related to your account. So you look at the top of that, you have project. You have the word media, impact, goals, gifts, and expenses. The most important to you, obviously, is the last one, which is statement. The other ones are not as important to you right now, other than you see gifts and you see expenses, because you can go there and see the detailed list of the gifts that have been given. I've now clicked on statement. Now, the same rule applies. If you would rather see this page first, you can save this page to your front screen of your computer. You save it as a favorite. There's a lot of ways in different software to save things. So now that I have saved this, number one, you see there's my current balance right there in the middle of the screen. I don't have to go any further. It's right there. What's important in this one is it gives a date. So this is as of 7/1 to 7/31. These little squares are calendars. If you click on them, you can change that date. So you can roll that back to whatever date. Now this date is going to look to the end of the month, but it'll also preset to whatever the current date is. It's like 30 days at a time. And if you could be looking at this on the 15th. But the interesting thing is, since it's a live balance, that is the correct balance as of the 15th. It doesn't include money that you know should be there that shows up as a pledge 3 days later. It's a live balance, all right? So, first of all, you're logging in, you're seeing your balance, and then you have print. So now you can get a paper statement. Now, most machines are set up that when you click that, you're going to see a screen that's going to look almost like your old statement. It's going to have beginning and ending balance. It's going to have a run. If I look down here below, and this was a full screen, everything that's for this period now would be detailed on the screen so you can look at it. There's going to be several places where if you just want to look in and see who gave in the last 30 days, I'm going to show you where to do that. But normally, when you bring this on, whatever that date is, this bottom section will say. If you make it 2 months, 3 months, all that activity will be on the screen, and that's as far as you have to go. But you certainly can print that out. That when you hit print, besides printing to your computer, there are also several common formats to download. Excel, common delineated. So for those of you that are computer people, there's ways to download it and save it on your computer. This is what a statement looks like. Here's what happens if I hit the word print. Again, current balance up there on top, and then you'll have a list of your giving with your names and expenses. They're all detailed out there. Now, once they're in this format, you can see them, but you can't do anything with it other than print it out. It's stagnant information. It's just a report. Now, if I wanted to know more, when I had that first, let's go back for just a minute. When I'm in these different formats and I see a donor's name on gifts, I can click on a name and it'll bring it. So here I'm looking at gifts. Remember the score we had at the top? Okay, so if I open up gifts, set of statements, it will list all of my givers. And anytime you see a name that's blue, that will take you to the detail of that donor, and we'll do that. So it's a way to basically, real quick, I've set my dates. It shows me who gave what on what day. It's just a way very clearly to get a little more information. But if I'm in here and I see a name and I'm not expecting $100 or they normally give a different amount, if I click on that, it'll take us to all the detail on that giving, and we'll show you. So that's gifts.
I find it easier when I was looking at this to click on the gift date so that the newest will come up to the top.
That's right. So these column titles, giver, gift date, and amount, when you click on it, it'll sort it. So it'll bring it up alphabetically or numerically. That's just one way to do it. It's not the only way to do it, but that's one way to do it. Now, gifts, I was hit gifts, and then there's pledges. And pledges is something that we're going to talk about. Because when you open up the pledges, you're going to see something on the other side of the column in color. Canceled, updated, past due. Okay? Now, the information really is almost as simple as it says. Canceled simply means that for some reason that transaction at $25 a month was canceled. I mean, something caused that. It could be a person. It could have been that we know that's the end of their giving date. People can sign up for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. Something caused it to cancel, and I'll get back to that. This one simply tells me that this gift is up. It's up to date. It also tells me it was given by a credit card. Okay, it tells me that information. Past due, we're going to talk about, because I'm going to tell you all, you should log into your pledges and look at that information. We're going to spend time on that. Past due notice in this new system, if a pledge is set up to go on the 15th of the month, and now we're at the 19th, it's past due. Doesn't mean it's 30 days past due. But the problem initially, well, some accounting, we've been trying to clean this up automatically, is that some repetitive giving was recorded as planned as pledges. And so they look like they're past due, and I'm going to show you how to identify that, but that's why you have to open those up and look at it. is it really past due, or is it past due for some reason that only you know? They've quit. They may have canceled a pledge because they've set up a new pledge. They've increased the amount, or they've changed it. So that information's there. So this is a summary. Again, you can sort by pledge date. Is one of the places you can start to see who the people are. And again, I'm looking at a mixed list here. If I saw this, of course I've blocked out the names. If I saw this cancel, I click on that, it'll take me exactly to that donor. So when I clicked on that name, it brought me to a donor's giving page. This is what a donor's giving page is. You'll know it because clearly the donor's name will be where I've got this blocked out. But it tells me that this donor gave on 7/1 $50 to that ministry. It tells me that. So I want to see it. But I also know by looking at this, I have a donor that has a lifetime, has given $3,200 to this person. The single highest gift was $50, but I also know the most recent gift was July, right? The other information over here regarding it's not critical for today's seminar, but just so you know, there's relationship understanding. There are 334 donors that live within 10 miles of that person. Anybody curious of why that's there? Anybody have any guess of why it's there?
No guess, just curious.
Okay, curious. The answer is if you're home on visitation, right? I can click on that and see who those 334 people are. They maybe give to other types of global things, and I would do that. Yes.
I am clicking on it, it's not opening.
What's that?
I am clicking on my 633 donors within 10 miles, but it's not opening.
Well, it's that's not the link. It's down later on your hosting page. I'm just telling you what that information for. I'm sorry.
I don't have that many donors, so how can they help you?
No, it's not. It's all giving.
There's somebody.
Let me answer that, because somebody will say, "Oh, I know that they." See, well, we want you to have 330 names. Okay. Here's why. Some people were a little freaked by this, but here's the logic. I had somebody in orientation say, "Well, I've got more donors than I thought I had." I know you do, because we've done mailing and they've seen your name and they've seen your ministry and they've added them to start giving to you, so they can be added to your list. The other thing is, let's say you have somebody who's been giving you $10. They've been giving you $10 a month forever. But if you know a little more about them, in some cases, there's a suggestion. It's a suggestion. That person that's been given you by other giving that they're doing for global says they might be able to give you $60. Okay? It's information for you to develop relationships and understand what they're asking. You might have somebody that's giving you $10, but you see that they have the capacity because they care about other types of ministries. So you want to call them, make sure you're thankful. You want to develop a relationship to tell them about your need and that type of thing. There's also, when you're online, there's financial scores of the people on social. Those financial scores are numeric. It's nothing that it's easy for to explain, but that tells me that this person has an 81% you'll find them on social media. That tells me, matter of fact, if I saw the address and there was an email, I can click on it and ask for their social profile. This is kind of freaks some people out. But what it does, it goes out and looks at that donor and it shows you public records of where they are at in giving. So now, if you're building a story, I see them on Facebook, I see them giving the children's programs, or I see them buying Bibles, or whatever they talk about. It's so that you gain more information when you communicate with them to better know them. And I have to tell you, in this process, there's a lot of people that support missionaries that the missionaries really don't know them that well. That's just the reality of it. I found they say, "Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know she had a sister. I didn't know that's what her birth date was," because that information will be there so you can better build your relationship. All right, that's the purpose of this. This is a relationship issue. So these are the kinds of information that we'll start to gather on a donor. And again, when you find a donor on your site. Now, when I come to a pledge, I talked back about a pledge being past due. This pledge was past due, marked for $50 in this case. If you'll notice, anytime you go to a pledge section, open it up, there's a little I and a little square. That's where you have control over editing what that information should be. When I click on that edit, all right, it told me that there were gifts. In this case, if you see this date here at 8/15, that tells me the system was tracking what the next month gift was, and this gift hadn't been processed yet. Now, what we're suggesting to everyone is when you go into your gifts, we want you to uncheck automatic tracking. You should unselect that. And the reason why, it's kind of like an accounts receivable system. You don't have to, it won't affect the accounting system, but I think it might be a little less frustrating for you so you don't see that past due when it's not really past due yet. It's for people who really want to manage out ahead, so you can take it off. If you look at gifts, and because I'm not online, I can't do it. Normally, when I click on that, the original page is underneath, okay, that list of giving. I can see that they gave in that period of time, but it wasn't matched up with that pledge, and I simply mark it forgiven. I don't want to go back and get it. Or, and this is a great example, if you had somebody who said that you believe they're still donating to you, and it's been a couple months since they've given, maybe you ought to find out why. Maybe somebody's sick. Maybe you need to have the connection, but you know that. Again, whether you forgive that or not forgive that, it does not affect the accounting system. It does not affect any of the track. It's an informational piece for you. If that person, for example, has completely stopped giving, you know what's going on. You can simply say that's no longer a pledge and just cancel it. Sometimes what you may know is you want to go through this because you want to cancel it because the information about that giving is no longer valid. And so what I want to do is I want to go in and set up. I can correct that pledge by hitting editing, and the screen changes so I can say their pledge date is the 10th, well in this case it says 10/15. I'm suggesting to most people that you set your pledge date up to the end of the month. That way it doesn't really matter when it hits the account, but it's just better, I think, in most cases. It gives people a day or two for something to process, holidays and that type of thing. I suggest you do that. The second thing you do is you can enter the amount. Again, sometimes the old system didn't know if it was quarterly, monthly. There's a drop down when you're filling that out. You can put it quarterly, annually, whatever. You get to build that in there when you're thinking doing it.
Can I just
Yeah.
answer? I have a lot of people that give me one big amount every year.
Yeah.
And all along there it says past due.
Mm-hmm.
And I just-
Yeah, so you can select annual. I also select, right now this one's canceled, this is blank, it says expected fulfillment date. Expected fulfillment date means how long do you think this pledge is going to be for? Now you may not know that. I suggest if you say that somebody has said they're going to support you and you believe it's at least going to be a year, you should set that date out a year or two. It's really to remind you, if you don't know, to check on that information. Again, that's your management information. It doesn't affect the accounting system. There are segments. You'll drop on this and you'll see it. There's a little drop down arrow right here. And if you know they're giving by credit card, if you know they're giving by EFT, those segments are there so you can tell it. That doesn't stop us processing, but it tells us where you're expecting. How this is often used is you're out talking to somebody at a church and they said, look, I'm going to support you, but I can't start for 2 months. You can come back and load that pledge in, put the start date in the future, because this pledge will go back to that page where your balance is. It'll adjust that total and you'll know you're getting gold. Now it may not be received yet, but you'll record that pledge against your budget goal. All right? Again, I'm suggesting that you uncheck this information. Sometimes we do get people, because they can do a donation, they can hit private. And so you will see people on your site that are anonymous. Yes?
Okay, in the U.S., Bob and I will clean up a lot of this as we are entering new gifts. Like this person, I saw that they gave on the 1st.
Mm-hmm.
I would personally, when I am ending the gift, I will see it needs to be updated. I will go in there and unclick that
Yeah,
for July.
right.
So, and we will, a lot of times put in whether it's a credit card or an EFT
Yeah,
under
right.
the segment. So we try to keep it
Yeah.
updated, but personally, I like those boxes clipped
Okay.
because that helps me keep it clean. For me.
And that's fine, Patty. All I'm saying is that if I look at somebody's gift, I look at one of these examples, it shows past due for the missionary, and it's really not past due. It's
But I would go
really,
in there
the
and
word
see
should be
that.
something different. It means it was due on 8/15.
Right.
That's a personal preface issue, but I wanted you to see where you can adjust that and do this. Yes, Bill?
Dennis, do you have control, like, if a church has dropped you or somebody's been awkward and died, can you get rid of them?
Not permanently. No, you're asking seriously, can you take them off your file?
Yeah.
No. You can notify Tammy, just like you're doing a contact, and you say, that church is no longer on my donor list. We can then take it off your list. It's what we call, but because there's financial information or stuff there, we don't, quote unquote, delete that whole file. We can disconnect it from your account. So you can reduce your, and that's good, Bill, because obviously you want your account to be as active as what you've got. And you know, a lot of times we may be the first one somebody to know that somebody's passed. We'll get a note from a family, and if we do that, we'll mark that as that person is deceased. But we will, as policy, not necessarily delete them from your list until you know it, because we want you to know that person's deceased. So the point is when you get to the pledging section, let me go back. When you get to the gifts, look for the word pledge and look down the list of pledges and review them. Yes, I have actually asked staff to look at the last 2 years. We've gone through all the files we can and cleaned up a lot of the pledges. But we don't always know by the information we get, is that a monthly giver, annual, quarter, like somebody says, I have people that give only annual and that type of thing. And so it's important for you to review them. And if you see something, again, just feel free to write to us to help. But for those of you that have not been tracking your pledging, this is where you should be going in and log it in your pledge. Number one, you should have a budget with what Jesse's talked about. If your actual pledges don't match what your budget is, you know, get on the phone with Keith and he'll help you do that. All of our people also know how to make some of these adjustments and help you tell them. And get that so that when you open up that balance, you can look right up at the top and say, here's my budget, this is what percentage of pledges that, and sets up a clear goal. And quite honestly, it's a great communication. Hey everybody, I've been in the field this long, but I have now fallen below, I'm at 90% of what I really need to do per month. Just put a call out for that, and it's a way to deal with this. Okay, now I'm back at what I call the dashboard page. So when I log on, I had I showed you over here how do you go to your projects. A dashboard, right now your screen, if you haven't been on, comes up and there's just big pluses here. When you click that plus, it gives you certain reports that you can preset on your page. Now in this one I always like, because you can click yearly giving and it'll go back and look at your historical giving and your current giving and give you a flow chart to exactly compare your giving from one year that then can be saved and it's always there for you to look at. In this case, I've actually done a giving comparison. I've said the last 30 days to the previous 30 days. So I can see right away, I don't have to calculate anything, I can see exactly what's happening with my giving, all right? So there's probably about 6 or 7 of those types of standard reports. You can open up and decide, you simply decide where you want them and which ones you want. But again, it's a management tool. The other important thing to show about this page is on the right-hand side, you click on the word reports. Now this is something that a lot of people haven't got to yet, and I think even Alice, we were talking about how do I get access to other reports. When you click this down, there are a list of other types of reports that come up. The most frequently and beneficial report that I have found is something called project summary, and I'll do that. And project summary, the reason why I say project summary, it gives you a very detailed income and expense. The statement gives you income and breakdown, and gives you expenses, but this really breaks down it in great detail. All right, we'll go back and look at that. The second report is if I just want to report on gifts by project. Again, projects are your account. If I win, well, before I talk about it, so I'll show you one. So are you project summary? Now, when I open up project, I selected project summary, it says find project. The benefit for you as missionaries is you only have 3 or 4 projects in the system, so you don't have to put anything. It's going to give you a report on all your projects, all right? It'll break them out, but it'll do it all. You can leave that blank. You don't need to fill any of that. All you got to do is select the date. So if I select this case from 6:30 to 7:30, there's the report. It comes out, it gives me income and expenses. If I had a full screen here, it would detail out all of the numbers. It'll also download it and print it out. So if you're analytical, if you're a person who manages everything on your account, you don't have to go any further. If you want to see the detail, it's all here. Again, I did that by coming to this location on that drop-down list. The second one I found was 13-month donor health. This is a report that takes all of the giving. This would be a report that would download. You can visually look at it. It's a list of every donor of exactly when their check came in. And again, if you're looking at somebody, here's the Campbells. You can see now this seems to be up to here. It stops here. I might want to know more information about that. Maybe it'll reset up. If I click on the blue, it'll take me to that account to answer any questions. Yes?
So you can have the same thing for a larger period as well, say within the last 3 years? Or
Yeah, when you you can select this period of time whatever you want to be. There's no restriction. Matter of fact, oftentimes when you're building these project reports, it'll ask you exactly what time frame you would like to have the reports. Here's also another place. It's called pledging payments or agents. That's another way for you to click on that, and it'll give you another direct report on your pledging in maybe a little cleaner form that you can download and look at. You know, just print it out and look at it, and then if you have qualifications. Now, of course, the other thing is important when you're looking at your donors is look at contact information, look at dates, birthdays or whatever you're missing. And then we have, as was covered in the service class, your monthly accountability report sends you links to update your contacts, which that means we update them. If you have people that do need to be removed from lists, that's when we do it. The general rule is if you've got less than 5 people to deal with, just send an email to Tammy. She'll deal with it. If it's a longer list, we have a form that you download and you fill out the information so we can load it up.
About the slide you just passed for the 13 months, as far as I remember, because I always try to figure out how to get there, but I remember once last time I get on that page, I had the whole list of all the donors from the beginning, and kind of connected to the question we had before, like many people are with the Lord now, from 20 years ago and so on. That would be then profitable to us to remove them so that list is not super busy,
Right.
we can go along.
Because even somebody being deceased, obviously there's financial records there. And as an agency, we're obligated to keep financial records. But if it's at a point that they're passed and you know you want them off the list, you can say, take these people. And by the way, I'll show you later. It actually comes up if we've marked. If you know somebody's deceased and we didn't get the information, you need to tell us that because you'll show up. Yes.
In the reports you were showing, a series of months. Is there something like last 12 months, so you don't have to pick?
Yeah.
Which months you want?
Yeah. They'll when you go there, there's settings that'll ask you when you want to start this activity. It's not preset. You can choose the time periods. Okay. If I get there, I'll show you that again. I'm back at the donor page again because I wanted you to see this for a couple reasons. I'm back at a donors page. So let's say I see a question on a donor. First of all, if at all possible, we have a husband and wife have their name there. There's an opportunity for us to add emails individually for them, which helps us do social profiles. Again, you can see here, you start to get the impact. Here's somebody that year to date giving is over $7,000. I think Joe would be mad, but Joe, in his orientation, he looked at somebody that's been with his ministry, and it was pretty impressive that he says, wow, they've been with me that long, when you see a dollar sign next to it, and they've given a lot of money. And it is important to understand what a particular group has doing elsewhere, because they might be great candidates to help you with a special project. Anyway, it gives you that information. Now here's the other thing you're going to see on candidates, donors. They are tagged for all mail. That means they're getting all mail from the mission agency. And they're telling me what other missionaries that they get mail from, or what other projects. They've given to a Russian project, they've given to Sierra Leone project, and there were people. Now, some people say, well, yeah, somebody can see who my donor is.
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that they give it. They're on their mailing.
They're on their mailing. That's right.
So,
that's what I was going to say. It doesn't mean that, just means they have other activities and activity. And quite honestly, I can't think who it was recently. Tammy, we had somebody, I think it was Brenda Walker or something, and she says, I don't know this person from Texas. Well, his last name was Walker, and he was touched by our ministry, and he asked to be added to our list. So it's important for you to look at those lists. And it's also important to see, in this case, what this tells me about this person is they are a contributor to a lot of different things in the mission. It may not. Now, the other thing you can start to tell sometimes, if you do a little more about that, if you notice that they're always giving towards gifts in a certain country, and it happens to be your country, that's very favorable if they're giving to certain types of projects. So that's how to read your. The other thing you have in your site is there's a place said notes. Across the top, you have overview, you have giving, so I could actually open up and see this particular person's very detailed giving. I can put notes in. Now, I suggest you use that, and that's where you can put in birth dates, anniversary dates. You could even set up a reminder. Right, Keith? If somebody should be calling every day, you could put a note in there where somebody says, you have call them every 6 months. They're a regular donor. Or whatever your schedule is, it'll send you an email that you need to talk to that person. You can put any kind of information. And the other great thing about that is if you have information that you want the head office to know, you can put it in there, and we can also read it. So you can say, well, he never goes by Charles, he goes by Chuck. I mean, that type of thing. Okay.
Can I ask you on that the screen that was over?
Yes.
The past one, where it gives that number within 10 miles.
Yeah.
I would have some donors who not want that public, and it is public for the whole mission. That would be
it's not for the whole mission. It's not. It is available to me if I have a administrative level. Yes, I could see that. It is not if I'm not on your list. You might know I'm on that circle of 300 people, but I can't see your contact information unless I'm connected to you.
Oh, okay.
The permission levels track certain things, but some of that information, like, hey, I'm going to go call on somebody else's 34 donors down the road, I can't see their addresses.
Oh.
They have to be on the permission list. That's why it takes me, when you log in, it takes me 24 hours basically to populate your permissions that will only give you permissions to the contact information you have. You might see that they're also on Dennis Campbell's list, but that's all it's going to tell you. It's not going to tell you, and obviously if they happen to be on your list, you're going to see all the information. But if they're not, if they were on Harry, if they were over here on Sylvia's address or something like that, Sylvia might, well, unless Sylvia somehow had got on the mail list, she wouldn't see the information. She wouldn't show it.
Okay.
I'd like to open it up now for questions.